We don't have a quorum. I apologize. We're all strapped, as you all know. Committees are going every which way, and certain chairs of the committee can't be here. So everything today is hearing only. So, Representative Senator Parks, you first. Why don't you come up here and give us your bill right here? We'll just take you in here first, and then we'll do the bill that I did last year last. We'll change the order here a little bit. Is this your first bill presented before Banks and Banking?
Yes.
Cost you a lot of money. Banks and Banking. Enjoy yourself. Go right ahead.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And
What are we working off of? Tell us what we're working off
yes,
of.
so we're working off of Senate Bill 451, LC 460789S. So the substitute to 451.
The substitute is what we want. All right.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys hearing my bill today, and I am proud to serve this bill that we have named the Support for Economic Resilience and Veterans Empowerment Act. It's called the SERVE Act. And I worked with the Georgia Department of Veteran Services. Commissioner Ross is here today. She'll be making some comments towards the bill, and the Georgia Department of Banking and Finance and the Georgia Department of Revenue. Unfortunately, the folks from the Banking and Finance can't be here today because they're at a conference in San Antonio. So, but I did work closely with them on this bill. And so overall, this bill amends Article 2 of Chapter 4 of Title 38 relating to veteran benefits. It also amends Title 7 relating to banking and finance to create a voluntary loan program at certain financial institutions to assist veterans. And it also amends Article 2 of Chapter 7 of Title 48 relating to reimbursement relating to imposition, rates, and computation and exemptions from income taxes so as to provide certain tax credits. So this bill is basically a voluntary loan interest program, low interest program. There you go. And so basically the state of veterans in Georgia, we have about 700,000 veterans. And so Georgia has a larger percentage of veterans at 7.6% of the population compared to the national average, which is 6.4%. A quarter of the state's veterans have an income less than $25,000 annually and are considered impoverished. 52% of Georgia's veterans make less than $50,000 a year, which is also considered below poverty for a family of 5. And the latest data from 2019 shows that 7% of Georgia's veterans receive SNAP benefits, and I think that number will probably be higher today. So veterans have long waits to receive benefits. According to the VA, when veterans seek services, it takes an average of 160 days for an initial decision, followed by an additional 125 days. It takes an average of 160 days for initial decision, followed by an additional 125 days if a higher level review is needed. And for an appeal, it takes an additional 695 days, and if they request a hearing, another 927 days on average, or 3 years. So it can take a while for them to receive the financial assistance that they need. So as a state with almost 700,000 veterans in a large defense sector with 9 active duty military installations, Georgia should lead the nation in ensuring a one-time financial crisis does not equate to a lifetime of crippling debt, resulting in added stressors which could exacerbate the veterans' physical and mental health. So the necessity for this bill is we had 15,217 veterans seek over 31,000 services in 2 years through the Georgia Department of Veteran Services, with a significant number filing for veteran benefits. Veterans frequently face financial emergencies and are hesitant to seek help, with their only recourse often being high-interest credit card debt. And so the veterans' financial assistance needs. So 60% of veterans seeking VA benefit assistance also required emergency financial support, indicating immediate needs that cannot wait for VA processing. And Georgia veteran populations skew younger than the national average, with only 38.9% over 65 and compared to 49.5% nationally. Also, I want to stress that there is no program that exists currently to provide low-cost loans for veterans. It does not exist right now. So the way that this bill works, so key components of it, it would provide low-interest loans up to $10,000 to veterans facing financial emergencies that when reducing the reliance on high-interest debt. It would act like a bridge loan or a microfinance loan for veterans who are struggling financially, and there's also a 4-year payback period. So personal needs like housing, healthcare services, food, and personal wellness is what, according to this legislation, that they can use their loan on. And the tax incentives are the tax incentives encourages individuals and corporate actually, let me go back. So basically, the way that this will be funded is much like the HARP program. So if you're familiar with the HARP program and how they fund hospitals, is how I've modeled this legislation. And so basically, you can take donations from individuals or corporations, and they can make it towards this program, and they would be approved by the Department of Revenue, and then that money would go to the banks. And so they would receive a 100% tax credit, and we have capped this tax credit to $20 million. In the HARP program, it is $75 million. But, we'll see if it gets to $20 million. So the way that the veterans receive their money is through these veteran debit cards, it'll be issued by certified banks. So these cards give veterans immediate access to approved credit lines for essential needs. So again, exclusive and specific use. Veteran debit cards are non-transferable and limited to approved expenses. As I mentioned, housing, healthcare, food, personal wellness, and they're focusing on the veterans' critical needs. And so the way that it's monitored and compliant spending, like HSA cards, these cards are strictly for approved costs, with transactions regularly checked for adherence to program guidelines. So the implementation and oversight, there's a lot of components to this bill. So the implementation and oversight. So basically, the Department of Veteran Services, they are responsible for maintaining a public list of certified veteran assistant financial institutions, ensuring veterans have easy access to participating banks and credit unions. And then the Department of Banking and Finance, they're tasked with certifying. They're the ones that are tasked with certifying the banks as veteran assistant entities. They set the standards for the loan programs, and they oversee compliance with the program's financial and operational requirements. And also, there's examinations. So the Department of Banking and Finance will conduct regular examinations of certified institutions to verify adherence to the program's guidelines and the effective use of funds, which happens every 3 years. So it wouldn't be an audit. It would not be an audit. It would be an examination. And then there's also joint annual reporting. So the Department of Banking and Finance, Revenue, and Veteran Services are required to submit an annual report to legislative committees detailing the operations, performance, and impact of the veteran assistance financial institutions. And the comprehensive oversight, these departments collectively ensure that the program operates transparently, maintains high standards of service for veterans, and utilizes resources efficiently to support veteran financial empowerment. So I've been asked, so what's the incentive to banks to do this? I'll be upfront with you. This is not a huge profit center for banks, but what the incentives are that we have in this legislation is 20% of the donations that they receive, they can use it for their administrative cost, and they can keep it for profit as well. Community engagement and reputation, they're allowed to, the participation would allow banks to strengthen community ties and enhance their reputation for supporting veterans, aligning with corporate social responsibility goals. Also, it's a potential for new customer relationships. Engaging with veterans through this program opens avenues for banks to establish long-term banking relationships with a loyal and growing demographic. And lastly, CRA compliance and community benefit. Participating in the Veterans Loan Program aligns with the Community Reinvestment Act goals. And aiding banks in meeting their obligations to serve all community segments, including those in low and moderate income areas, potentially enhancing their CRA ratings and supporting community revitalization efforts. And so with that, that is my presentation for Senate Bill 451, and would love to hear any questions that you may have.
You did that without taking a breath. That's impressive.
Probably. Breathing for 2 now.
Yes, that was impressive. We're hearing only, as you well know, but I got a couple things. You unpacked an incredible lot of stuff in that bill right there. That's a lot of unpacking. A couple things I need to run by, just make sure. Who will oversee this if it goes further? Who will oversee this?
Department of Banking and Finance.
Department of Banking and Finance, okay.
Yeah.
And it's a limit of a $20 million tax credit is what you'd be doing?
Correct.
Okay, and it would fall under like the HART program or the private school type program where $10,000 can be given out of your income tax. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
And that would be already approved and be a write-off?
Yes, so they would have to apply for it through the Department of Revenue and be approved. And then, yes, they would receive 100% tax credit.
Okay, and they will receive the 100% tax credit. Okay. On the $10,000, if I understand correctly, is that a non-recourse note to a veteran?
I will have to check. I don't have the answer to that.
Okay. I mean, is any collateral that goes along with that? Is it anything he has to pledge besides his blood,
No,
sweat, and tears?
no. So, no, they would just have to be an eligible veteran, which requires 1 year residency, 90 days of active duty service, or proof of an honorable discharge.
And if they don't pay it back, what happens? I'm just trying to.
There's an appeals process. If they don't pay it back, then the bank.
I don't want a system scam. I'm trying to figure out how you keep the system from getting
The
scammed.
bank will then have to go through a process to get the money back from the veteran.
Who would?
The banks. That would be the bank's responsibility.
The banks have to go through to get it back. Okay. And you say it's not a lot of profit center to them. I'm trying to make sure, because, I mean, 700,000 people getting a $10,000 loan is a lot of.
Well, yes. So that's the number of veterans that we have, and we have one of the highest veteran populations in the state of Georgia. But this bill would essentially help people in times of need. So like low income veterans that really need this money, that are, right here it says about a quarter of the state's veterans have an income of less than $25,000, and 7% of Georgia veterans receive SNAP benefits. So it wouldn't be all 700,000. Folks. I mean, if you're a well-to-do veteran, you're not going to seek this financial assistance and go through all the process to receive this loan, I would imagine. So.
But to get this money, get this money, you'd have to go to your bank, to qualify for this, and you have to go through the same procedures anybody else would about borrowing money. Is that correct?
Correct.
Any good thing? Questions, committee? Number 8.
Number eight.
Rogers.
Thank you, Senator. Good presentation. Just a couple of questions. What's to stop a bank from doing this now? Outside of the tax credit, if a bank wanted to do this to get CR credit and believed in the veterans community and all of those good social things that we should do, what's to stop a bank from making loans to vets now without this bill?
Well, I checked with Senate Research to see if there was a similar program to this anywhere in any other state, and I haven't seen anything. But from what I understand is, look, I understand that everyone has a bottom line, and I think that at the end of the day, this is a low-interest loan at 1.5%. So
Right.
I can't really answer to why it hasn't happened already, but that's why I can't.
No, but there's nothing to stop a bank if a bank
No,
wanted
I
to do
don't.
it
I don't
now.
think so.
Okay.
Not at all. And this would qualify under the Community Reinvestment Act.
And if somebody, say, anytime somebody borrows money, you look at the money they have coming in the door, and then you look at the money they have going out the door, and you try to figure out if they can pay you back. And if you make a lot of those loans, my friends at the banking department get mad at you. So some of these folks won't be able to pay. And if they can't pay, it's on the bank, right? There's no state backstop. You're not talking about the state guaranteeing these loans, taxpayers guaranteeing them. It's on the bank. Okay. And then the last thing that I would ask is, is there a fiscal note
So
attached to this?
I did ask for a fiscal note. It'll probably come sometime next week.
Okay.
So, but as mentioned in this bill, there's a $20 million tax credit limit. I did speak to the deputy commissioner at the Department of Banking, Commissioner Fears, and he said he's estimating, now we need to see the actual fiscal note, but probably like about $1 million for the Department of Banking and Finance to implement this program.
Okay, all righty. Well, we certainly love our veterans. Thank you for putting this together.
Questions from the committee? Anybody got anything? You're 8. What are you? 5?
Point of clarification, just so I understand flow.
Yeah.
So I want to make a donation to this. I do up to $10,000. I get that as a tax credit on my state taxes. That money goes to the Department of Banking and Finance, who has authorized or certified banks, like actual banking institutions, to execute on this program. So is the just to make sure, the Department of Banking and Finance then is transferring any of those dollars then
So-
to those banks, and that becomes the pool of money that they're using by which to give the loans?
I'm glad you asked this question. So to clarify, you would have to become a certified veteran assistance bank first.
Yeah.
So once that happens, and that is a procedure that you would do with the Department of Banking and Finance. And the reason that we've created this procedure is because we just wanted the banks to know the rules and regulations behind this program. And then if you wanted to make, the way it's funded is if you're a donor or corporation, you would apply with the Department of Revenue, because they're the ones that make sure you receive your tax credit. And they approve your donation application, and you have 60 days to make a donation to a certified bank.
So I'm actually making the donation to the
To the bank,
certified
yes.
bank.
Yes.
But there's a cross tab on that so that the Department of Revenue knows to give me that credit.
Correct, so that you receive your tax credit.
And then the bank has those pool of funds, however many they may be for each bank. And the bank is set as part of the rules and regulations of an interest rate of 1.5%.
Yes, so that
Loan.
with that 1.5% is reinvested into the Veterans Loan Program. So, yeah.
Okay.
I'm glad she got it because I didn't quite get it. I got to ask one more question. The banks, this is voluntary to any bank,
This is voluntary, it's not
any
being
bank.
forced
So
on
no
anyone.
bank should force to do this,
No.
okay? They have to become a certified bank to make this loan or this,
Correct.
in this program.
Correct,
And then the $10,000 that Senator Halpern would write from our for state taxes goes to fund this program,
correct.
okay? Right, bank record. Just make sure we're on that thing. I see we have some bankers in the audience here, Mr. Bo, Mr. Joe, Steve. You all have anything you'd like to add to this? If you want to, anybody want to add anything right quick like here? Oh, I'm sorry. Sir, number 6, go.
Yeah, Senator, thank you for bringing this, always looking for ways to help our veterans, and thank you, but I'm trying to understand this. So there's a maximum amount of tax credit. The pool size is $20 million annually, is that right?
Yes.
So when that money is aggregated by the state, where does that money go to implement this program?
So are you saying, so when the individual or the corporation makes that donation, it would go straight to the bank? And then the department, yeah.
Okay, so the taxpayer writes the money, writes the check to the bank. And then how does the bank utilize those funds?
So then, when a eligible veteran goes to a loan application to qualify for that loan, they would then receive, once they qualify, they receive their $10,000 loan, and that's issued on a debit card.
So is the source of the $10,000 loan from the money that the
From
taxpayer
donations.
sent
Yes.
in? Okay.
Yes.
So the bank, in essence, is holding this separate journal, if you will,
Segregated account.
segregated account that's got the funds, and let's assume the bank got $100,000 from 10 different taxpayers at $10,000 each. So there's $100,000. So the bank then has a pool of money from which to loan to veterans under whatever the metrics are here, up to $100,000. Is that right?
Yes.
And then the bank earns a 1.5% interest rate
So-
on those funds loaned to the veteran.
So the 1.5 interest rate actually goes back into the loan program. So to help increase the money that we have in the loan program, so that we can have
Okay.
more funds. But the bank does get 20% of the donations. So not 100% would go, to clarify, not 100% goes to the veterans, 20% would go to the bank as
Okay.
an incentive. So because they need to cover their administrative costs as well.
So back to my example, if 10 people, 10 taxpayers who donated $10,000 each to Bank A, they now have $100,000 in this special fund. They get to retain $20,000
Yes.
to cover administrative expenses. There's $80,000 left to loan out to veterans.
Yes.
Is that right? And then the veterans pay 1.5%
Yes, so.
back on, hold on,
Go ahead.
I want to make sure I'm with you.
Yeah, go ahead.
And so the bank administers that whole process. So that model that you've just described, the bank is not loaning its own money, it's loaning money that was given to the bank by a taxpayer for the purpose of funding this program. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That's all I got right now.
Any members? And you are number 3, all right, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, so the debit card, does it hold the entire amount?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, what follow up, yeah.
They can take up to 10,000.
Yeah.
So-
Can I
Go.
follow in?
And they can
Yeah.
use it on housing, like expensive healthcare needs, personal wellness, food.
Yeah, but, sorry, Mr.
Yeah, you go ahead.
So, I get that. I think, I'm thinking about the need, and you're saying these are low-income veterans.
Yes.
And what is the time like of them paying it back?
4 years.
Okay.
So what else can you tell me to help unpack what the loan model looks like between the bank and the veteran? We've got the interest rate. The term is 4 years. Is that what I think I just heard you tell Senator Anderson?
Yes.
Okay.
It
And
is-
then, are there any other special terms or terms that would be different from normal banking market terms in making, this sounds like a personal consumer type loan or a personal loan?
So, on line 108, so no less than 65% of such funds shall be used to provide lines of credit for eligible veterans. And then no less than 15% of such funds shall be used to make, so 15% of the funds need to be used for investments, for the long-term viability of the program. And no more than 20% of such funds may be retained by the financial institution to cover administrative costs. So the breakdown is 65, 15, 20. And the bank keeps 20, which would cover for admin cost and profit.
And is there anything in the bill that addresses whether or not the bank would use ordinary methods and practices to ensure that the money is paid back?
Repeat your question one more time.
Is there anything in the bill
Yes.
that would deviate from ordinary banking practices in dealing with someone that was a borrower to ensure that the funds were repaid to the bank?
I don't believe so. I wish Department of Banking and Finance was here because they could probably help answer that question. But I don't think so, but I will check again and I'll clarify.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I understand the model. So the last thing, so we all understand, in essence, what we're taking taxpayer money that's due to the state of Georgia, and we're diverting it to various banks that are going to hold it in special accounts that will be loaned out to veterans.
Correct.
On these special terms, and that they're going to be paid an administrative fee. What happens as the corpus of that account grows? Is there anything in here that talks about the limits on how large that can be, and does this
4
go
million.
into perpetuity?
4 million.
4 million.
Yeah, so 2
Per
million.
bank?
Yes. 2 million in individual contributions and 2 million in corporate contributions.
Is there ever a point in which the bank then pays the money or some portion of that fund back to the state?
No,
Excuse me.
that is nowhere in this bill.
So if
Yeah.
it doesn't, this is a diversion of taxpayer money due to the government to a special program, which the state will never see, will never get the benefit of the interest, will never benefit or not benefit based upon the performance of the loan as related to the veteran borrowers.
I don't believe that I have anything in this bill that would detail that. I think someone from the Department of Revenue is here, so they can explain a little bit further
Okay,
to your question.
okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open it up for questions in the, anybody that's got it for or against it. Any of my bankers, anybody want to speak on this bill? Please take the podium, tell us who you are, tell us who you with, like we don't know. You want number one? Okay, number one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Lori Godfrey with Community Bankers Association, and I have sent an email with our concerns to the senator outlining, while we totally understand and appreciate veterans' benefits, I'm more concerned with the operations of it and how the processes work from the Department of Banking and Finance's standpoint. The version that I think you're working off of is a substitute, and the version that I was looking at is the original bill, so I don't know if maybe some of these comments that I've provided may have changed because of the substitute, but I think from our standpoint, I'm curious as to why all banks couldn't do this already and why it needs to be a regulated program through the Department of Banking and Finance. I'm also curious as to why the Department of Veterans Services couldn't administer something like this as opposed to the banking department. I am a former employee of the banking department and worked there for about 18 and a half years, and I can tell you that they do not have the staff or the resources to be able to oversee this type of program without specific appropriations. And so I would ask that if the bill is considered, that there be appropriations made before this would become effective, because I do worry about them from a staffing standpoint and a shortage of employees. In regards to specifics, there was some language in the original bill where we were talking about the line of credit being at $10,000 per veteran. And my question would be is, how does the bank that has been authorized to be one of these lenders know who the eligible veterans are? How do they know that they haven't gotten other loans at other institutions? Because you could theoretically go out there and get it at other places, even though the law says that you would be limited to 2, I believe, or 1 within a 2-year period. But my question becomes, on a compliance standpoint, how does a bank ensure compliance with this if they don't have access to that database? Is this something that Department of Veteran Affairs would track? I'm not sure. That's something that I had a question on. We talk about in the bill that the line of credit states that the funds shall only be available to be used on at point of sale vendors and for certain purposes. And I know that we spoke with the senator about how do you guarantee as a bank, when you're swiping that point of sale transaction, that it's being used for the right purpose. Like, there are some very specific reasons that they could use it. And I equate it to like an HSA account where you're using your debit card at Publix and you can only use it for certain things at the pharmacy, but you can't go use regular groceries to buy on your HSA card. So I'm assuming that would be the bank's responsibility to enforce compliance for something like that. But again, that's another burden for our institutions for such a minimal fee that they would be getting. In a separate account, I know she talked about that, and I would translate that to like an IOLTA account that attorneys have. We are used to having segregated accounts for that, so I don't think we would have an issue on that at all. And then how or why would an appeal, there's something in the bill that said that an appeal for permanently being ineligible as a veteran or as an institution has to go to the Department of Banking and Finance. And there are credit underwriting standards set up by each institution. Well, if you're saying that an appeal goes to the Department of Banking and Finance, the Department of Banking and Finance does not get into underwriting of loans. They do not get into making individual decisions for loans. And so to me, that's overstepping what the oversight of the banking department is intended. I personally see that this is a significant burden for our banks and for banking department as written. And so I'm hopeful that we can come up with some sort of solution that would make it work better. But as written, we would be opposed to the bill, but we certainly are open to working on trying to make it amenable.
Thank you, Ms. Godfrey. Anybody else that wants to speak to this? You didn't sign a sign-up sheet, so please tell us who you
did.
are. Oh, you did?
I'm Commissioner Trish Ross with the Department of Veterans Service for the state. So a couple of things. One, to Senator Islam Park's bill. Let me tell you the why. And I'll give you a little bit more information. I'm looking at my friend Senator Anderson because she knows this. What most folks don't realize is when somebody leaves military service, most leave without any sort of compensation, benefits, et cetera. I know the senator talked about some of the timelines to get veteran benefits from the VA. Most folks do not get those benefits because, one, you have to apply for them, and two, there's a pretty heavy burden to show that you had an injury or an illness while on active duty, so it doesn't cover our reserve and our guard. And then that has to go through a very laborious process through the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. And so many of our veterans do not get any sort of compensation. And even if you're a retiree, which is about 12% of our veteran population, you still have to pay some health care costs and co-pays and et cetera. So I get a lot of folks who think you leave the military, you automatically have income for the rest of your life. That's not the case. A couple of other things is some of the challenges, and let me give you just a great example. I'm working with a veteran now. His house burned down last week. He's in his 70s. His daughter called me from Nevada. She is not able to help him because she's so far away. He ended up getting a couple of days through the Red Cross and is now at a shelter in Macon with the Salvation Army, right? That is his home for the time being as we work with the VA to get him into their new homeless facility that should open sometime in April. There is no community-based organization, because I've reached out to them, that's who normally helps with these emergency financial situations that can help in his area. Because what's happened is over the last couple of years since we ended the war in Afghanistan is our community-based organizations no longer have the financial stability they once did because folks aren't giving to veterans causes because they think we're not at war. But I think we as Georgians understand kind of the risk where our soldiers, those 3 that are interred or have been interred, one yesterday and a couple on Saturday, that our men and women are still bearing our freedom. You know, they're giving their lives for our freedoms. And so a couple of things, I've got other examples on how this would work. That individual could have gotten funding from a loan program such as this to be able to pay last month's rent, get into an apartment. He cannot afford that because he has lost everything. And so you see those emergency kind of one-time situations, thousands of which our office gets contacted on, and we simply don't have the resources to assist, nor does the Department of Veterans Affairs. So the merits of this program, I think, speak for themselves. I think it's definitely needed. I can't speak to the operational and the semantics on the banking aspects of this, but I did want you to know that I think some of the reasons banks don't do this is it's not viable. I mean, it's getting 1.5% back on a loan probably isn't a good business case for them. And so they've not done this. This would give incentives for the banks to keep a portion of that money donated to then enable them to hopefully help out those veterans who, like I said, have these kind of one-time emergency needs, because ultimately the data says that if you're financially unstable, if you're at the risk of homelessness or have ever been homeless any time in your life, that is a causal relationship to suicidal ideations. And I know we all don't want to lose any more of our veteran population. So thank you.
There's not a person in this room, probably around here, that doesn't want to help veterans. I can
Yes,
tell you that
sir.
up front. So that is not the issue. I think we just need a little work here and a little time. I'm concerned about the 900 days, the 900 days that Senator mentioned. I mean, that's a federal thing, I'm assuming.
It is a federal thing, and those are the dates from the VA themselves. I think some of them are underestimated based on what we see. So my department, we help our veterans apply for VA benefits, and so we track that. That's a good portion of what we do here in the state. And it is, one, it's not easy, and it takes way too long. And these are folks that have been harmed through their military service and are entitled to compensation, and it takes 6 months to 3 years for them to actually see it.
In this day and time, $10,000 won't go a long way paying rent, first and last month's rent. But
No, sir.
I guess what I was getting at, my first question to Senator Parks was before, was the fact that, you know, if the banks have to give this money out on a card, credit card, however you want to say it, you know, and the system is gamed, and I'm not saying a veteran would game the system, but if there's no
They might.
recourse, if it's non-recourse note, you know, it's a non-recourse note. And if the banks have to go and try to file against that person or whatever it is to get their write-off, if you will, I'm assuming. I don't know if that even could get the right word. I just didn't want us to create I'm trying to make the system work, but not make the banks bog down in it because, like you said, for a little bit amount of money, it's just a lot of service work.
Yes, sir. And to the point that was made before, you know, the Department of Veteran Service, we're a very small organization and are not experts in banking. So if we were to take that on to centralize this, that is not something we could do within, you know, our current staffing model and or expertise, but we could keep the list. I mean, we'd already be screening these individuals to ensure that they've got the right discharge status, have been residents. I mean, we would help do that pre-screening, so they'd have to come to us and get something for us before they could apply to a bank. And we could certainly, if the banks then gave us that information, keep the overall list of who has applied and has received funding, so that we're not having that case of folks kind of double dipping and bank hopping to ensure there's not
Gaming.
that sort of risk.
Yeah, I can see it.
So, yeah, our
it could be there.
department would be willing to do that.
Anybody else need to speak for this? Mr. Joe Bannon, Georgia Bankers, please come up here. Take that number 3 there.
Very quickly, Lori, I'm Joe Brennan with the Georgia Bankers Association. First, let me thank Senator Islam Parks. We met about the bill, and I have told her that we totally understand where she's coming from. Commissioner Ross outlined exactly the issue there. We do have concerns about the operational components. We are also among those who say if this is taxpayer dollars that's being used for public purposes, it probably should be within a state agency doing that. We work closely with the Department of Community Affairs, Department of Agriculture, other state agencies that have expertise in handling revolving loan funds like this. I've never come to you in my 44 years saying we don't want the business, but I think it has the potential to be so complicated that it doesn't work. So I told Senator Islam Parks this morning we will be happy to continue working with you on trying to find a solution here, because we all know what the problem is we're dealing with.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Thank you for that. Senator Parks, anybody else for this is a hearing only, if you don't mind. If you don't mind, I think you got a bill that could be fashioned into something we could work with. Honestly, would you please take it and work with the banks? And I'll give you my word, if we can get you in another hearing between now and next Thursday, I'll get you in. If there's something you can work with the banks to get this thing.
Absolutely. Look, I think this is a need, and I think that this program can work, so I'm amenable to doing what we can to make sure that the implementation of this program works.
Well, I thank you for thinking about the veterans, and thank you. We'll close this part of that hearing. Okay, the next one, and I want to take it be real quick here, if you don't mind. I'll present from the chair here, and I've got Dante Hanna with ACCG. Dante, will you give her number 2 there, please? And thank you for showing up, Senator Strickland. You gave us a quorum. We actually can take a little action here.
I was late.
Well,
nothing as important as this committee.
Now that right there is what you want to hear, guy. That's how you want to hear them done, right there. Guys, this is if you all remember, we did this bill. It passed out of this committee unanimously. It went to rules, passed unanimously. It made it to the House, and you know what happens when it gets to the House, right? It got stagnated. This bill here is basically for your local governments. Every county in our state, 159 counties, has this issue of derelict properties they can't get rid of, they can't sell. There's always something going on with them. And basically what this bill does, once again, is it's a Senate resolution. It had to be voted on by the public. I mean, it's got to go on the ballot in November. And Dante, if you could take about 2 minutes and explain this to us, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you very much, Chairman Summers and members of the committee. My name is Dante Handel with ACCG. So the issue that we have is that the county commissioners are able to waive penalties and interest, but they don't have a mechanism to waive the underlying taxes. So this is a constitutional amendment to give them that mechanism. And so the local governments, the county would be waiving the delinquent taxes on behalf of the county and the school boards. The cities would be able to do the same for the city taxes at an independent city school district if they have one. And then the tax commissioner at that tax sale. So first off, the tax commissioner would have to try and sell it under the normal system twice. And if it fails to sell at those 2 standard tax sales, then the local governments would be able to pass a resolution authorizing the tax commissioner to accept less than what is owed.
And that's property by property.
Yes, sir. Yep.
That's right.
Property by property needs to be specified in the resolution, and I think the parcel needs to be specified as well in that resolution. Then the tax commissioner is able to accept less than what it's owed. That will give those local governments a portion of the delinquent taxes, then hopefully put that property back into a productive state where it'll generate future tax revenue for all local governments.
And please explain the fact how we stopping them from gaming the system.
Yes, sir. So if you are
The owner.
of that property and you wanted to bid at that tax sale, you can't bid less than the taxes that you already owed on that property. Then there is a 1-year right of redemption. So that's an existing law. The way that works is the owner whose property sold, they can buy it back for the sale price plus an extra 20% that goes to the person who purchased it at the tax sale. So if the person were to buy back their property using that right of redemption, then any taxes that were waived reattach to their property as a lien to prevent them from gaming the system.
Plus the 20%.
But plus the 20% paid to the purchaser from the tax sale. Yes,
Any
sir.
questions from the committee on this one? Anybody? I'd like to obtain a motion if you all want to move this, man. So we get your
Motion to pass.
motion.
Second.
Best substitute. Second, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion on this bill, on this resolution? All in favor, please raise your hand. Let the record show it's unanimous. Thank you. We'll put this in rules. Dante, may need you there just to make sure, and then we'll go from there if you don't mind.
Thank you, sir.
Before we adjourn here, banking, we got a little dinner coming up March 13th. Please put it in your calendar. I want to thank all the people that were involved in helping us pull this off. It'll be at Pure Taqueria in Inman Park, 300 North Highland. We had the same place last year. It was great. I see Miss Sydney in the back. Miss Sydney, thank you for helping make this happen. Very kind of you to do that. And all my lobbyist friends in the back. Ms. Garst, Joel in the back there, thank you all for doing this. Please invite all your friends and tell them to bring all their money. And if there's no other business, we are adjourned. Thank you.